A spoiled and self-centered prince once resided in a French kingdom and hosted lavish banquets for all of his royal subjects at a palace. An elderly beggar named Agatha approached the prince's palace one night and asked for shelter from the cold in exchange for a rose. Even when the elderly woman cautioned him not to be fooled by looks, the prince and his subjects mocked and scoffed at her. A gorgeous enchantress soon replaced the old woman's scrawny appearance after the prince turned her away once more. The enchantress had already noticed that the prince's heart lacked love when he tried to beg for pardon. She punished them by transforming the subjects into household items and the prince into a monstrous beast. Through the enchantress's magic, the castle and everyone who lived there were forgotten by those living outside the kingdom. The enchanted mirror that served as the beast's portal to the outside world was also left behind, along with a rose. Before the last petal falls, the spell will be broken if the beast can win the heart of another. He will always be a beast if he doesn't win the heart of another. A young woman named Belle lives in the village of Villeneuve many years later. She doesn't quite fit in with the other residents of the town, who all think she's strange. Belle enjoys reading picture books. The appealing but narcissistic hunter and former war captain Gaston is after her. When Belle emerges from a bookstore, he rides into town with his lackey, Le Faux, and locates her. She declines Gaston's invitation to supper after his attempts to court her. To her music box maker father Maurice, Belle goes home. He is currently working on a music box that will feature both him and his late wife, who was also Belle's mother. Belle asks Maurice to bring back a rose, as he always does, as he is about to go to sell his music boxes in another town. With Philippe as his mount, Maurice travels into the jungle. He makes a turn in the direction of a snow-covered walkway. Maurice and Philippe are forced to leave after coming across a pack of wolves. He enters the abandoned grounds of the prince's castle when they pass through a gate that leads there. When Maurice enters the castle, Cogsworth the mantel clock and Lumiere the candelabra both see him. Maurice enters the dining room and takes a seat. He is shocked when Chip, a little boy who has been transformed into a teacup, approaches him and starts speaking. When Maurice travels through the garden and spies a rose, he stops riding and exits the castle. He tries to choose one for Belle, but the beast discovers him and accuses Maurice of stealing. And he is taken hostage by the beast. Philippe is taken back to the castle by Belle. In the dungeon, she meets Maurice, who advises her to go back. The beast then appears, and Belle is astounded by his look. Maurice is a thief, the beast claims, and is sentenced to life in the dungeon. Maurice objects, but Belle says she will step in. The beast accepts the deal and releases Maurice. He is assured by Belle that she will find a way to go. Despite being initially terrified of them, Belle eventually meets Lumiere and Cogsworth. Before the curse turned them into candelabras and mantel clocks, Lumiere and Cogsworth were the castle footman and majordomo, respectively. Clemette, the maid who has been transformed into a feather duster that resembles a peacock, Madame de Garderobe, an Italian opera singer who has been transformed into a wardrobe. Belle is led by Lumiere from the dungeon into a room in the east wing. When Garderobe outfits Belle in a grotesque gown, Belle gets the bright idea to down the tower using the ribbons. Le Faux and Gaston are lamenting Belle's rejection of him in a tavern. Le Faux and the other villagers attempt to cheer him up by extolling Gaston's virtues in song. Soon later, Maurice walks in and immediately begins ranting about the beast and how he has captured Belle. The other villagers mock his assertions, but Gaston promises to go with Maurice to find the beast in order to win Belle's hand in marriage. The beast bangs on Belle's bedroom door, trying to persuade her to join him for dinner, but he is too obnoxious. While Belle is still putting ribbons together to build her rope, Lumiere, Cogsworth, Mrs. Potts, and Clemette all stand behind him and make attempts to assist. However, Belle refuses to join the beast. The beast snarls at his staff before leaving. The castle begins to tremble and begin to fall apart a little as we see the rose lose another petal. Additionally, it makes the inanimate castle items appear less and less human. In order to follow the palace items to the dining area, Belle leaves her room and follows them. As they flaunt their good eating, Lumiere leads the items in a beautiful musical piece called Be Our Guest. After that, Belle strays into the west wing. Belle discovers the rose inside a jar there. She is suddenly startled by the beast, who yells for her to leave. Leaving the castle grounds on Philippe, Belle flees. She is then attacked by the wolves in the woods. Before the beast arrives and engages them in battle, Belle makes an effort to repel them. The dominant wolf fangs into his back, but the beast flings it off and roars, frightening the wolves away. Despite this, he is seriously hurt and falls to the ground. The beast is then helped onto Philippe by Belle. As Belle tends to the beast's wound, bond blossoms between them despite his complaints about the agony. She allows him to rest. Belle is informed by Mrs. Potts that the beast was not always cruel. They are aware that when the prince's mother passed away, his father nurtured him to be the person he was before he was cursed because they had known him all of his life. When Belle inquires about the rose, the items explain that they will become inanimate and that the prince will be a beast forever if the final petal falls without finding someone to love and then also to love him back. In the song, Days in the Sun, they express their desire to once more be human. The young prince is seen gazing at his mother as she lies dying before his father yanks him away. Led by Maurice, Gaston, and Le Faux explore the forest in search of the castle's entrance. Le Faux and Gaston believe Maurice to be insane. Gaston yells at Maurice and threatens to abandon him to the wolves after admitting that his genuine motivation is to merely aid Maurice in order to win Belle's hand. Gaston tries to hide it by acting like a lovely guy, but Maurice recognizes Gaston for who he really is and declares that he would never permit Gaston to wed Belle. For the wolves to find Maurice, Gaston knocks him out cold and ties him to a tree. Le Faux thinks this is too much, but he has to follow Gaston because he is his only option. Shakespeare is being read aloud by Belle to the beast, who is familiar with the play by heart. Then he takes Belle to see his huge library, which he claims is now hers. As the beast gradually reveals his kinder and gentler side, and the objects can see it as well, Belle grows to like him, something there. Later, the beast reveals to Belle an enchanted book that, if one can imagine it, enables anyone to travel anywhere they choose. When Belle puts her hand inside the book, they are taken to an old Parisian home. When Belle was a baby, Maurice and his wife lived there. A doctor's mask that the beast discovers reveals that Belle's mother perished in the plague. In a flashback, Maurice can be seen caring for his wife as she nears death. She instructs him to keep Belle safe, and Belle discovers just a glass rose that was left there. How does a moment last forever? Agathe, a local beggar woman, tends to Maurice and saves him. When Gaston and Le Faux return to Villeneuve, they are both surprised to see Maurice sitting in the tavern. The townspeople are informed by Maurice that Gaston abandoned him to perish in the woods. Le Faux is coerced by Gaston into lying to cover his tracks when Maurice names him as a witness. Maurice is labeled a deluded lunatic by Gaston. Lumiere and the others attempt to properly groom the beast. Garderobe drapes Belle in a lovely gown. The beast asks Belle to dance in the ballroom with him. Beauty and the Beast. The beast and Belle dance together passionately. The beast then asks Belle whether she might be happy there, to which she replies that no one can be happy if they are not free. He gives her the magic mirror so she can see her father because he is aware that she misses him. When Belle notices the people bothering Maurice, she understands that he is in trouble. Even though he now realizes that he really does love Belle, the beast climbs his tower in sadness as she leaves, evermore. Since Belle doesn't love him in exchange for the breaking of the spell, Maurice is placed in a mental facility run by Monsieur at Gaston's request, but he is given one more chance to make amends provided he approves of Gaston's decision to wed Belle. Gaston sends Maurice away because he continues to refuse. Belle comes just in time to prevent the carriage from leaving. To convince the villagers that the beast is real, she shows them the mirror, which horrifies everyone. Before the beast tries to hurt anyone else, Gaston changes his mind and begins to rally the villagers to pursue him. Mob song. As Gaston leads the villagers to storm the castle, Belle is then imprisoned in the carriage with Maurice. The castle furnishings observe the villagers advancing toward the castle. The peasants begin to smash down the door as they struggle to keep it closed. Cogsworth goes to alert the beast, but the latter is too depressed to be concerned. Then Lumiere organizes all the castle's elements into a strategy. Le Faux sees Mrs. Potts and Chip as the villagers come in and believe Mrs. Potts to be his grandma. She starts the argument because she is not happy. Mrs. Potts throws hot tea on the assailants, Cadenza fires piano keys, Cogsworth sends flying books to strike the villagers, and Garderobe dresses as Lumiere illuminate the floor. 3 French stooges wearing dresses, powdered wigs, and make up the third stooge is pretty happy with his appearance as the other 2 stooges flee in terror. Le Faux sits atop Cadenza and asks Gaston for assistance. He declines in order to pursue the beast. Le Faux rescues Mrs. Potts as she plummets from the chandelier a short while later and decides to switch sides. Agathe is seen ascending the stairs in the background. Then, terrified, the peasants flee. In the carriage, Belle tells Maurice about the glass rose and lets him know that she is aware of the truth of her mother's fate. Belle accepts Maurice's insistence that he merely wanted to keep her safe. In order for Maurice to open the lock, she pulls out a pin. When they exit the carriage, Belle takes Philippe back to the castle on her horse. As Gaston ascends the tower, he discovers the beast wailing outside a window. He shoots the beast in the back, causing him to tumble onto a lower roof. Gaston pursues him and urges the beast to defend himself. When Belle eventually goes back to the castle, the beast's spirit is revived. He asserts that he is not a beast in response to Gaston. While the coward pleads for mercy, he is holding Gaston over a ledge and commands him to depart, while sparing his life. Gaston shoots the beast twice in the back when he leaps to the next tower to be with Belle. As the bridge Gaston is standing on collapses and he falls to his death, Karma then turns on Gaston. Even though the beast is dying, he has enough time to see Belle. The final petal then breaks. When Plumette is in Lumiere's arms, she transforms into a typical feather duster as the castle inhabitants celebrate their triumph over the villagers. As Mrs. Potts transforms into a standard teapot, she scrambles to find Chip. Soon after, Chip arrives and nearly collides but is stopped by a coat hanger. As a result, both of them become inanimate, along with the wardrobe, her husband, and her pet dog. Before they too become inanimate, Lumiere and Cogsworth express their friendship to one another. When Belle sees the beast, she weeps and declares her love for him. As Belle says this, Agathe walks in. Agathe, who was actually the enchantress in disguise, breaks the spell by restoring the rose to its original appearance. The beast then reverts to his human form. He then kisses Belle for the first time. The kingdom is then free of the darkness, and things begin to return to normal. Chip, Plumette, Cadenza, Garderobe, Mrs. Potts, Lumiere, and Cogsworth all awaken, revert to human form, and reconnect with their loved ones. The prince sprints to embrace his pals. All the residents of the castle, including Maurice and Le Faux, gather in a party in the ballroom. During their dance together, Belle asks the prince if he can develop a beard. Cadenza plays music over the dance as Garderobe and Mrs. Potts sing. And they all went on to lead fulfilling lives.